hand it over to Alex and Sue.
Okay. Calcium. Calcium, the most abundant mineral in the body, is found in some foods, added to others, available as a dietary supplement, and present in some medicines, such as antacids. Calcium is required for vascular contraction and vasodilation, muscle function, nerve transmission, intracellular signalling, and hormonal secretion. Though less than 1% of total body calcium is needed to support these critical metabolic functions. The remaining 99% of the body's calcium supply is stored in the bones and teeth, where it supports their structure and function. Bone itself undergoes continuous remodelling with constant resorption and deposition of calcium into new bone. The balance between bone resorption and deposition changes with age. Bone formation exceeds resorption in periods of growth in children and adolescents, whereas in early and middle-aged adulthood, both processes are relatively equal. Calcium is a major part of tooth and bone health as well. It makes your bones strong and dense. You can think of your bones as your body's calcium reservoir. If you don't get enough calcium in your diet, your body will take it from your bones. Your body doesn't produce calcium, so you have to rely on your diet to get the calcium you need. Foods that are high in calcium include dairy products such as milk, cheese and yogurt, dark green vegetables such as kale, spinach and broccoli, white beans, sardines, salmon, calcium-fortified breads, cereals, soy products and orange juices. Your body needs vitamin D in order to absorb calcium. That means you won't fully benefit from calcium-rich diet if you're low in vitamin D. You can get vitamin D from certain foods such as salmon, eggs, egg yolks and some mushrooms. Like calcium, some foods products have vitamin D added to them. For example, milk often has added vitamin D. Sunshine is your best source of vitamin D. Your skin naturally produces vitamin D when exposed to the sun. Those with darker skin don't produce vitamin D as well, so supplements may be necessary to avoid deficiency. Several studies show that calcium may ease symptoms of premenstrual syndrome. This study trusted source concluded that women with PMS have lower intakes of calcium and magnesium and lower serum levels. How do you know if you're getting enough calcium? Intake recommendations for calcium and other nutrients are provided in the dietary reference intakes developed by the Food and Nutrition Board. And then there's a table there that tells you if you want to have a look. A lack of calcium could lead to other health issues. For adults, too little calcium can increase your risk of developing osteoporosis or frail and porous bones that easily fracture. Osteoporosis is especially common in older women, which is why the NIH recommends they consume more calcium than their male counterparts. Calcium is essential for children as they grow and develop. Children who don't get enough calcium may not grow to their full potential height or develop other health issues. Groups at risk of calcium inadequacy: postmenopausal women, I don't know how to say that, and menophoric women, and the female athlete triad. Individuals with lactose intolerance or cow's milk allergy, and vegetarians and vegans. Not everyone gets the calcium they need from diet alone. If you're lactose intolerant, vegan, or just not a fan of dietary products, you might find it difficult to get enough calcium in your diet. A calcium supplement can help add calcium to your diet. Calcium carbonate and calcium citrate are the two most recommended forms of calcium supplements. Calcium carbonate is cheaper and more common. It can be found in most antacid medicines. It needs to be taken with food in order for it to work. Calcium citrate doesn't need to be taken with food and may be better absorbed by old people with lower levels of stomach acid. Take note that calcium supplements do have side effects. You may experience constipation, gas and bloating. The supplements may also interfere with your body's ability to absorb other nutrients or medications. Check with your doctor before starting any supplements. With any mineral or nutrient, it's important to get the right amount. Too much calcium can have negative side effects. Symptoms such as constipation, gas and bloating may indicate that you're getting too much calcium. Extra calcium may also increase your risk of kidney stones. In rare cases, too much calcium can cause deposits of calcium in your blood. This is called hypoglycemia. Some doctors think that taking calcium substance can increase your risk of heart disease, but others disagree. At the moment, more research is needed to understand how calcium supplements affect heart health. Calcium is essential for your overall health. You can get calcium you need from many different foods, and if necessary from supplements. Calcium works together with other nutrients such as vitamin D, so it's important to keep up a balanced diet. As with any mineral or nutrient, you should monitor your calcium intake so that you're not getting too much or too little. Here we go.
Very good.
Very good.
Thank you, Alex.
Thank you.
Alex did all the work, I just did the reading.
Ah, right.
If anyone doesn't want their paperwork, I'll put it in here for us.
And if anyone wants to know a particular food type and what the daily intake is, I have it in front of me.
That's fantastic. And before, I just made a couple of points. I just wanted to clarify some of the things that were said there. Anyone, before I jump in, have any questions to Alex and Sue about calcium?
Didn't know that vitamin D absorbed calcium.
No, I didn't
so
either.
that's-
Yeah, that's your best form of calcium absorption, is the sun, vitamin D. You can get it through supplements, but
So drink milk while in the sun.
Have a cheese
Have a
sandwich on the
cheese
beach.
sandwich.
it'll get absorbed even quicker.
Interesting point for me. I've grown up with olive skin and that too. That's my skin, my body doesn't take and use the vitamin D as effectively as someone with lighter skin. So the misnomer, or someone with a healthy tan or olive skin is healthy is the other window.
So that, so let me just clarify a couple of things. That's a really interesting point. So vitamin D and calcium are two completely separate things. Calcium's a mineral, it's stored mostly in bone, so we got that. And vitamin D, as it says, is a vitamin. And vitamin D, even though you mentioned you can get vitamin D in some foods, what you were reading out there was from America.
Mhm.
I know.
Yeah, well,
I
obviously,
can tell.
yeah.
So the only caveat there is that those rules don't apply here in Australia. So they don't fortify milk in Australia with vitamin D. So just so you know that. Well, I've never seen it in Woolies, but that, just to be clear on that. And also there are, you read out foods like mushrooms and some seafood that contain vitamin D. That's spot on. The only thing is, and eggs, the only thing is that the levels are very low.
Yeah.
Very low, very low.
You have to eat a load of salmon and lots of egg yolks.
Yeah, and even if you did, you wouldn't be able to get enough vitamin D. Just to
Yeah.
make that clear.
Yeah.
You cannot get enough vitamin D from food, right? So the bottom line is, as Alex was just saying, you have to go into the sun to get vitamin D. And the reason for that is that there's a whole very complex pathway in your body. And it actually starts partly with cholesterol, even though cholesterol's got a bad rap. So the cholesterol is actually when the sun shines on your skin, in actual fact the ultraviolet component of the sun, it can convert this cholesterol vitamin D precursor into the real form of vitamin D. So that's how you get vitamin D. So no sun very little vitamin D unless, as you were saying, you supplement with vitamin D. Right? Nearly, I'd be so bold as to say, this talks to what you were just saying, with olive skin, probably everyone in this room may be low in vitamin D, particularly as we're just coming out of winter right now. So no one's really had a lot of sun anyway. So we're going to go through blood tests, not today, because but maybe next week. I'd suggest everyone here, as part of the blood tests they do for you through Dave, the doctor, and the nurses here, ask to get your vitamin D levels checked. Really, really important.
Do they do that in a standard blood test?
Not well, there is really no such thing as a standard blood test, but here, because there's, they will check your bloods, meaning hematology and white blood cells and all that, and some of your liver function. They may not do routinely vitamin D.
Yeah.
But it is, as far as I know, it's still covered under Medicare. And Zoe, who's one of the only one who's not here.
Yeah, she said she can't be here today, but she'll bring them out next week.
Yeah, that's great. So Zoe was very gracious and gave me her blood tests last week, or on Wednesday, and we'll talk about those. And one of the interesting things to talk about is that her vitamin D was really low. To the point, I would be definitely, if she came to see me in the clinic, recommending to supplement with vitamin D. Because there's a threshold, and that's exactly what you were saying, Sue. You don't get enough vitamin D because there's this interplay, and that's what you're both alluding to, between calcium and vitamin D. Sort of, calcium needs vitamin D to be absorbed from the food.
Yeah, I never knew that.
So there's a threshold that if we do the blood test, which I'm recommending everyone gets done, and I've just had mine done, and mine's low as well, so I have to take my own medicine literally. If it gets below a certain level, you increase your risk of osteoporosis, which, as you've said, is more profound and pronounced in postmenopausal women.
How long would you take? Sorry.
Hang on, Shane's had his hand up.
You
for
go
it.
first.
No, you have just first.
No,
no.
no.
You go first.
We just, there's two main types of supplements. Would you stay away from, was it Sue, the nitrate one?
Oh, you talking about calcium, Shane?
Supplement.
Carbonate.
If your blood tests come back and show that you're low in vitamin D,
Yep.
which supplement would you take?
Okay, there's only one supplement that I'd recommend.
Yep.
And so, I'm always sort of saying other things here, but it's encouraged if you bring in some sort of pen and piece of paper, because there'll be...
I forgot today.
It's all right. It's just because bits of useful information come up during the class, and maybe one bit. So the form that you need, so here we go. And if someone writes it down, then great. You can go to Jade and remember. There's a website called, I can supply it, but this is a short track. This is a shortcut and it's cheap. There's a website called iherb.com.
So we can see from
Herb.
what's an herb?
iHerb, yeah.
Capitals or what?
It's a what's the word? It's not really a nutrition site. It's a logistics site.
Write it down as a capital or look small?
No, just iHerb. Just all one word. IHERB.
One small I or a
Yeah, they're all small. .com. So if you go to that site, they've got thousands and thousands of nutrition-based products, including food and including supplements. They're a logistic company. In other words, they gather stuff from all over the world and they send it around all over the world. They're like Amazon, except for food and nutrition supplements and stuff like that. Good on you, thanks.
Thank you.
Now, the supplement you need is from a company called Thorn Research. someone writes that down as well. Thorne, Thorne research. Thorne Research is they're a research company, as the name says, and they make supplements in America. They've been doing it for over 20 years. When I did my nutrition medicine course, that was what most of those supplements are what we call the nutrition medicine doctors in Australia are using, because they've got lots of trials, they work, they've got in them what they say they've got in them, they don't put fillers in there, they don't put crap in there, and they're in capsule form, they're not tablets. Capsules are much easier to absorb than tablets, hard tablets, and blah blah blah, and some of them are liquids as well. So, iherb.com, Thorne Research is the brand name, and the product is called Vitamin D plus K2.
Now, I had a low vitamin D in my blood test, and the
As
doctors,
well?
yeah,
Yeah.
well, not here, but previously at my own doctor's, and he just told me to get vitamin D from the chemist.
Yeah, well that's what they do, because they don't know.
They don't know
Well,
any different.
No, they don't.
Okay.
Yeah, and you can walk into Woolies and you can walk into Priceline and go and buy vitamin D off the shelf.
Yeah.
I'm just giving you the top of the range.
Oh,
and,
okay.
and it's not more expensive necessarily.
Yeah.
And the evidence says that if you take vitamin D, you should take vitamin K2, that's what that K2 is, as well.
Is that what they give to babies when they're born?
Yeah, K, vitamin K, that's right.
Injection.
Yeah. So, that's the thing. Hang on, one last thing. It's their drops. There's about 600 drops in the bottle, so it'll last you months and months. And it costs somewhere between 30 and 40 bucks. I was recommending that to Jade the other day. So that's what I'd recommend, and you can do all that online, and they can ship it here to Freeman House.
I was just laughing at Annie. Annie, did you hear what he just said about the drops?
Yes, what about them?
That one.
I didn't
I'll
hear
tell you
you,
later.
sorry.
There's 600, is that where it was?
So you can't just,
drops.
you can't just have 20
You
down.
can't just, if you're on weight
Oh.
loss stuff, you can't just put 10 drops in and think it's going to work faster.
Yeah,
Right.
now, that's right. Now, here's one, and that Michael's just brought up a really good point.
So does that explain why I haven't lost any weight?
No, I wasn't saying that. I was
I
just.
should have lost more weight technically if I
The-
did more.
The dispenser is designed to
Less is more.
dispense one drop at a time. But here's the thing,
Yeah.
and take advantage of me while I'm here, because if you all get your vitamin D level checked, right, through here, you're all going to come back with different results. Someone, and Zoe's all right me talking about it, someone's going to come back with a result of 43. That's her result. What's the optimal? About 100. When does it get really bad? When you're below 60. So, when I see that, I will put someone on an accelerated amount for at least 2 weeks
Yeah.
to bring the levels up. But you need to know what that is. So you take advantage of someone like myself to get that information and work with you on an individual level. So again, another reason to strike one.
So those vitamins that I bought, the doctor said to take 2 a day for 3 months or something, and then go back to 1 a day.
Yeah, that's right.
But will they still work, even though they're just off the shelf?
Have you got them still
No, I didn't bring them with me.
in here? No, I mean have you
At
got them?
home, yeah,
Not here at Freeman House?
no.
Well, okay, so you should, when was the last time you had your vitamin D level checked?
Oh, it was probably in my last blood test, probably about 6 months ago.
Okay, get it done again,
Yeah.
because it's not relevant, because that would have been at the end of summer,
Mhm.
so it doesn't apply right now. It's free, get it done again, then ask me and we'll work out a proper regime.
Mhm.
Okay, Shane?
Is there something we're being organised for our blood test here, is there? Did
No,
I
you have to
picture
go
right?
to see the doctor and ask.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, so with the blood test,
Individual basis, sorry. Yeah.
this is not normal, Shane. You know, it's not, you have to be a little bit proactive with your own health. So when you come across someone like me, I'm into encouraging you to be proactive. Some people don't care. They don't want to be proactive. They get sick, they just want to go to a doctor, listen to the doctor, do what the doctor says and go home. That's fine. There's no problem with that at all, to some degree. But if you want My advice is that you become more proactive so that you can play a part in the discussions that you have with your doctor. Do you know what I mean? You don't have to go to uni for 10 years to be able to have a discussion with a doctor that is more geared towards your own personal health. That's what we talk about here in these classes, particularly.
It's exactly the same for the soil.
Yeah.
If you got too much of one thing, not, you know, you can put it as much of the other thing on as you like.
That's right.
Don't
It's
want
going to create an imbalance.
Don't want to.
That's exactly right.
I don't want to accept it. Yeah.
I got told yesterday, I already knew, but I've got more information about it. I've got chronic kidney disease, I got told yesterday. I knew that anyway, but
What did you say you had?
chronic kidney disease.
Kidney disease?
Yeah.
Oh.
I had it for years, I just didn't know it.
Yeah.
So they said just there, it was good to know that calcium can affect the kidneys.
Yeah.
So yeah, I knew it anyway, but I didn't have any symptoms. There was no lower back pain. There was no problem going to the bathroom or anything like that. But I did have it.
So definitely come to these classes, because when we go through the blood test, there's a very simple monitoring test that we do that keeps a track on your kidneys.
Yeah.
Now, you provided a really good segue to the next point that I was going to bring up about calcium and kidneys and things like that. So, one thing, guys, these classes are not designed to download a whole bunch of facts and remember all the facts. They're designed, hopefully, so that you can think about things and ask the appropriate questions, right? So, some of that has already started to happen. So, the main reason why you should be able to think about things and get an overview understanding about things and ask questions is because the rules say calcium can cause kidney stones, right? You said that. That does not apply to everyone, and it does not apply in every situation, because every individual is an individual and metabolically unique. So that is true on a population level, perhaps for a lot of people, right? It's a general statement, but is it true for John? We don't know that, so we have to.
We did just say that some doctors, so it's not an out and out fact. Just that some doctors think, you know, high calcium levels give you a high chance of getting kidney stones.
Yeah, and the reason that some doctors say that is because they've read the literature. They've read things that, not on a blog, from, you know, credible sources. But it's interesting, all of that as well. So here's what I wanted to say. One way to attenuate too much calcium negatively affecting the kidneys is to make sure you're taking enough magnesium at the same time. Yeah, which is exactly speaks to Shane's
You'll
point.
have like a spice rack of bloody...
Well, hang on a minute. I'm not talking about. I'm not talking about supplements.
Take my calcium, then I've got to take my
Yeah.
magnesium, then I've got to take my
But
vitamin
it's
D.
all a balance.
If you want to go for a drive, do you need a car or a push bike or something? Oh,
And then you've got to put
you'd
petrol
be
in.
riding then, wouldn't you? Yeah.
Put oil in
Yeah,
it,
you
you've
need-
got to put...
I've
Oh.
got to take 4 tablets of magnesium a day.
You already do. Yeah. There you go. And they would have been prescribed for your kidneys.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So to talk to Sue's point, she just brought up, and we're talking about supplements at the moment because we're talking about calcium and vitamin D. And vitamin D is one of the few things that you can't actually get from food. So you've got to get it from the sun. If you work in an office or you work inside or you're confined to barracks, which is what's been happening during the coronavirus thing, you're not going to get enough vitamin D because you're not going to get outside. So that's one of the exceptions to the rule. That's why we're talking about supplements.
That leads to my question.
But hang on, so generally, this whole thing, and that's why I actually wrote that book that Alex has got there in front of him, Food Synergy. And Alex was opening up the questions. Well, where can you get enough calcium from? Particularly if you're a vegan or if you don't have milk. And I had to answer that question to clients who come to me. And for myself, And the fact of the matter is you can get it enough from food, but you've got to know what you're doing.
Yeah.
It's the old story. If you're going to balance your soil, you better know what you're doing. You know, get some tests, get some background, get some understanding.
It's just one thing affects another.
That's right.
Yeah.
Too much of one thing can cause a depletion of something
Yeah.
else. Yeah, that's right.
Seeds are probably, if you're a vegetarian,
So,
seeds are probably the highest calcium intake.
Give us 3 foods while you're there, Alex. Like you're just saying seeds. What sort of seeds?
Yeah,
are,
what's it?
give us some
Okay.
examples.
Sesame seeds, whole and dried, gives you 26.32% of your daily intake.
26, did you say?
That's a quarter.
Yep.
26%.
And by the way, Hart,
Yeah.
those vitamin tablets, the Wheeze ones, 50 plus,
Yeah.
it's got 35 milligrams of calcium in
Okay.
it. So there's a third.
So sesame seeds?
Right.
Sesame
Um,
seeds?
Well, you give me something you want.
Oh. Spinach is mentioned, spinach, but
Spinach?
so we have to have a lot of that.
Yeah.
Vitamin D, sorry,
Yeah.
that might have been vitamin D.
Spinach, cooked, boiled, drained, gives you 12.24%.
12.2%.
Yes. And
And
what
what's that
Alex is?
based on how much?
It's a serving size.
It's,
So,
yeah, which is half a cup.
Okay.
I've seen a gun pack inside out.
That's amazing, Jack.
you've achieved something today.
And with the sesame seeds, that's 3 tablespoons.
Oh, 3
Yeah.
tablespoons.
Shuts and everything.
Are there, Alex? So if you go to the legume section, can you tell us? Chickpeas, are they on there?
you don't need your supplements.
Is it?
Get all my nutrition from gun.
No,
Or any legumes?
yeah, you got, well, give me the highest one.
Yeah.
Tofu, raw preparation,
Okay, just stop there, right there.
Tofu.
Why
Stop it,
is how much is in tofu?
80, sorry, that's with calcium carbonate. If you have it prepared with magari,
Magari, okay.
that's 42.9%.
So what was the highest one? What did you say? 80 something?
That's tofu raw prepared with calcium sulfate, at
Okay.
86%.
All right. Does anyone here eat tofu?
No.
That's it.
Oh,
Sometimes.
well, now.
It's horrible.
No.
I've tried
A
it.
lot of people
that
don't like
soup,
it.
it was
This one.
delicious.
Yeah.
It's actually yummy when you mix it with
Yeah.
sweet chili sauce.
Yeah, most people don't know how to cook in Australia because this really comes from the Asian countries, particularly
That last
Japan.
stuff.
You get it in their
Um,
soup.
But the reason why it's so high in calcium is because they need calcium to make the tofu. So it's added in there. That's what the thing is. And by the way,
Soybeans?
no, we're just talking, that's with soybeans, that's correct. Yeah, exactly. It's a soy-based product. Just one other thing, calcium is not added to bread. You mentioned that in your thing. That's an American thing again as well.
Yeah.
Isn't there
Wonder why?
there is one of them that
Yeah,
has
if you
calcium?
look, that you'll probably find a unique thing.
Yeah.
And that's what you've seen? You've seen that?
Yeah, I think you said Wonder White. I think that does have calcium in it. And there's another one, it's in a blue packet. I think it's called One or something.
Okay, so that's a really good reason to make sure you read labels. But just don't assume that it's in all breeds.
What if the writing's that small, even though you've got
Yeah.
glasses and you can't read it?
You need to take a magnifying glass when you go to the supermarket.
Yeah.
So, my question?
Go ahead.
Okay, before I forget it.
Go.
Now, how many minutes would you have to spend? Like, is it like 5 minutes out in the sun per day to
Okay,
get your daily
good
calcium?
question, good question.
Vitamin D? Was that
Anyone like to answer Jay's
I
question?
say
or
5 minutes.
5 minutes. So Jay's asking, how long do you need to spend in the sun? That's a broad term. To get enough of your daily intake of vitamin D. Good question.
Yeah,
I would
yeah.
say increments
4
of
hours.
about 10 minutes.
4 hours? 10 minutes?
10 minutes,
Oh,
but
fair
you
enough.
might do it 2 or 3 times a day.
So what does that say?
Increments of 10 minutes, so you might do 10 minutes in the morning, 10 minutes in the afternoon, 10 minutes
Okay.
before the sun goes down.
Okay. Probably Sue's the closest to, and I'm not saying that's because I agree with you, because that's some of the guidelines. Because I don't agree.
Well, otherwise you burn.
Yeah, the guidelines say around 20 minutes or so of direct sunlight on as much of your body as possible. If you're all rubbed up and you've only got your fingers showing, well, it works with square meters of skin exposed to the sun.
Is that why there's nude bathing?
Yeah, that's one of the good reasons
Does
to
it
go
still
nude
work?
bathing.
Does it still work when you're wearing sunscreen?
No, that's a good question. Did you hear that?
That's why I don't wear sunscreen.
Yeah, no.
So it doesn't work with sunscreen?
Yeah, because it has to be, you have to have that ultraviolet light on your body. By the way, Armidale being 1,000 metres above sea level.
And if you have darker skin, is it harder as well?
Well,
Well, that's what it says.
yeah, to some degree, and that's why the skin gets darker the closer you get to the equator, because you're getting a massive amount of sun.
And is there
Melatonin.
any correlation between that, like Jesse's question there in front, you know? Because I can go out in the sun, I was a greenkeeper and that, I'd go out all day, I hate sunscreen and I don't burn, never burn. Probably,
Well, you're lucky.
I could have pointed out, I was going to say Nick's probably the same with his skin colour. Is that any correlation between that? Say if Jade or you know, went out, Jade
No, I don't
in the
know.
sun, he could only spend a certain amount of time, whereas I can spend.
Yeah.
Is that to compensate for my colour of my skin? Is my body compensating?
Is the question talking about vitamin D there? Or what are you
dirty?
The melatonin? Melatonin, is it?
No,
Well, when
melatonin
because it said earlier on that the
serotonin.
darker skinned people,
Yeah.
What's that?
you know,
May not absorb
Melanoma.
sun.
Longer in the sun.
Melanoma.
Yeah,
No, that's
that is that is a
Yeah, I'm
correlation.
thinking
But-
melatonin.
That's your sleep.
If you
Melatonin.
hang on a sec, hang on. Also, if you have fair skin, like you were saying, Jack has fair skin. Well, Jack will necessarily not spend so much time in the sun because he burns. I'm just saying that. I'm not saying you do. I don't know if you do, but he but you know. But so what is it? It all comes back to get your vitamin D tested. Take the ambiguity out of the equation. Take the guesswork out of everything we're talking about. Get it tested. Right? Then you know. So you'll be naturally low at the end of winter, and you may be a bit higher at the end of summer.
Could we simplify things here, if anyone, I don't know if it's silly,
Go ahead.
just write on a piece of paper, everyone's name, and sign it. We require vitamin D test. You know, if anyone
Or
wants
you
to
just
sign
talk
it,
to
you
your
just give it to the
doctor
doctor
if
and
you
he
want.
knows it's all on.
Well, we
right,
don't have
right.
to do
You
it.
know,
Yeah,
up front, instead of going there and forgetting about it.
yeah.
If you just put our names down and whoever wants to do it, sign it.
I've actually
That'd
done
shake
that.
them up, we'd be too organised, though,
But
wouldn't
the
we?
thing is, here's the thing.
People leave though.
Yeah, people leave, there's a lot of change of staff, the nurses. So, look, that's a good idea, Shane, and it'd be nice to just.
But they think we were being a bit smart.
Oh, isn't it everyone's responsibility
Well, that's
to
right.
get themselves
Yeah,
tested?
it is a little bit personal responsibility there, but also someone may have just, like Zoe, just had the test. But some of you may have just had a test before you come in here, I don't know. So you already know what your vitamin D levels are. Look, that's a good point.
But would that be a courtesy thing to the doctor as well?
No.
Well, I mean,
I'm just saying, they don't work like that, they're not proactive.
Everyone walks in through here in the next few weeks, they're going to ask for a vitamin D test,
Yeah,
all of a sudden,
yeah,
you know.
You know,
Well,
I had a blood
that's-
test this morning, so I'm not going to bother going back.
yeah.
Vitamin D,
Look, it's entirely up to yourself.
you got to go back again.
Nah,
The thing
no
is,
way.
the doctor
You didn't
is,
ask for vitamin D.
isn't the
If they take any
doctor,
more blood,
by
I'll drop, I
seeing
reckon.
one
You didn't
patient
ask
at a
vitamin D,
time.
Hang on, just one at a time, let's talk one at a Shane?
But
just-
isn't it, like the whole idea of each person individually going to the doctor one person at a time, that also, it's not just for our benefit, but he's also a paid professional that
Yeah.
needs to be paid for each individual consultation.
That's
So instead of giving him a list,
Yeah.
it kind of.
It doesn't work that way anyway, and that's right, because they can't order it in bulk,
Yes.
Shane. That doesn't work like that.
Shane.
No, I'm just saying, you know, it's a good idea. It'd be nice to automate things, and I agree with it.
If you don't ask a stupid question, well, then
Yeah.
you're not
That-
going to
yeah.
get
That's right.
No question is a stupid question.
Yeah, that's
Can I-
right.
And
That's right.
actually, I wanted to
Money
ask
don't
a question
ask.
that might also be equally stupid, but and it's probably not really related to vitamin D, but this whole issue of sunscreen and stopping vitamin D entering the skin when you're applying it,
Yeah.
why then is it promoted when vitamin D, like I'm starting to think, because I've heard rumours, and I'm a bit of a conspiracy theorist, but about the fact that, you wouldn't have believed it, I know, but
Go ahead.
that actually sunscreen does more harm than good.
Yeah, yeah,
Which is why I've never used it.
yeah.
But mud works.
Yeah, but mud's natural.
Yeah, that's what I'm
It
saying.
comes from
Use
the
mud.
planet Earth, whereas sunscreen is made
Okay,
essentially.
so
bit like-
that's a really
So
good
you
point,
agree
Anne.
with that?
It's not so much a matter of agreeing, because one of the underlying themes that keeps erupting in this class
Yeah, sorry.
is that, no,
It's a good question.
is that
I like
it's an individual. You answer that question based on an individual.
Yeah.
So, if it depends, it depends. If Jack will burn to a frizzle in about 5 minutes if he goes out in the sun, and yet he's just got a job as a brickies labourer.
I actually do work out in the sun.
Yeah,
For
and so what is he going to do? He's going to
go
try.
hide under the scaffold. Go back the next one to there.
Yeah, so Jack will have to make those decisions based for himself, because there are downsides
Yeah.
to sunscreen.
Yeah.
Apart from the
Jack
fact
was-
that they contain horrible chemicals, so you have to find ones that don't contain horrible
What about
chemicals.
zinc?
Yeah, that's what.
Yeah, that's right.
Zinc's good.
Yeah, well, different. Well, when you say
Zinc,
zinc, you don't actually rub zinc on you.
The blue
It's a-
stuff.
It's a screen that you put on that contains a lot of other chemicals as well.
What if
So
they
you-
have zinc as supplement? Will you burn still?
Yeah. Work from the outside in, not the
Inside
inside
out,
out.
yeah.
So, so answer the question for yourself and find out. Find out if you think that you need to because you're exposed and there's no other way, you can't just do it with clothes and all that sort of stuff. Absolutely, you should do that.
Well, otherwise you might get melanoma.
That's correct. So thank you, Sue. So the main reason, and if you're
That it's
into
an individual
conspiracy, that it's recommended to put on sunscreen is to avoid the development of skin cancers.
Your 10 minutes a day or 20 minutes a day would be okay, but if you're lying on the beach for 5 hours,
Yeah, that's right.
Then
But
you
again, that's an individual thing as well. Is it okay for someone
Our
to get 10
skin gets
minutes?
exposed all the time. We've got a mark
Yeah.
there that's always
Isn't,
Well, I was
isn't
actually-
it just really
starts
like,
zinking up this area.
I actually got told that that's pigmentation from liver disease.
It can be, yeah.
But mine
Michael's
is
going to
good.
say something?
But I've had liver disease, so it applies to me.
Mine's all right.
Michael?
I was just going to say, like
Alcohol.
Ian started with, we all come from Earth. And like you were saying, people with their weight have darker skin. Isn't it just common sense that if my skin is very pale and I'm living in South Africa or fucking the Sudan desert, that I would cover up. And,
Which they do there.
That's right. And if vice versa, if I was living in Ireland where it's cold, or Scotland and I've got pale skin, well,
Fit right in.
fucking go naked.
Well, I guess
Doesn't matter,
the point
it's,
I was
you know.
trying to get at was that I've got pale skin, but I've never covered up with sunscreen, and I've never had a melanoma, and I only don't apply sunscreen. Well, as a child it was just basic neglect, but as an adult I choose not to put it on my skin because of what you just said. It's full of chemicals, and
Yeah.
I personally believe that anything that is grown naturally on this planet, I think we're naturally adaptable. We adapt naturally to our environment. So, and I'm not saying that's the case for all people. People have melanoma, but who's to say melanoma doesn't come from doing something else and being in the sun?
Well, that's a really good point,
Yeah.
because I just want to give, this is the health and nutrition class, so I just want to give nutrition a little plug here.
Sure.
And there's a genetic component. You're lucky,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Because you've been dealt a hand
Yeah.
of genes.
Yes.
Everyone in this room has been dealt their own hand of genes.
Yeah.
Some genes there's a risk, so I studied genetics, and I actually had my whole genome tested a couple of years ago. Some people have genes that would make them, put them in the category of having a higher risk of something.
Yeah.
whether it be breast cancer, whether it be skin cancer, whether it be Alzheimer's, you name it, it goes on and on. It does not, but what we've learned, this is really important, what we've learned, even though you've been dealt a certain hand of genes, it doesn't mean that those risk factors will actually turn out and manifest.
Yeah.
Because now we understand there's a whole thing called epigenetics. In other words, what you do and the environmental interactions that happen in your life have a huge part to play in the expression of your genes.
Yeah.
That's really, really important. So, right? And one of the biggest environmental factors that play a huge role in the expression of your genes is your nutrition.
Yeah.
Huge.
And is it fair to say that, no, let's just not go.
When in Rome, do as the Romans do.
You know,
Would be
I
easy to say,
don't
wouldn't it?
agree with that statement.
I don't know what's the context of that.
Well, if you're living in an area where it's very hot and they eat certain foods that are beneficial to them in their gene pool,
Oh, right.
wouldn't you say that?
Yeah, well, that's right. If those people are still in touch with their ethnicity and the generations of knowledge that have been built up.
Is
that's
there
exactly
like
right.
a
That's right.
non-chemical sunscreen that works? And
Why don't you find that out for us,
I'll
Jess?
Google it right now.
And either report back to us next week, because I
Okay.
can't answer that one off the top of my head.
Just a bit of advice, if you go fishing, don't put on sunscreen.
Why
Don't
is
get
that?
on your hands.
Because they can smell it on the hooks.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Nice, did not know that, thank you.
Yeah,
Spray
so
it
if
in
you go
WD-40
fishing
on
with
there.
someone and they
I
get
love it.
sunscreen all over it, and then they bait up, and you don't touch it, and then you bait up, I bet you I'll get a fish, not him.
So is that the same when you go spear fishing with sharks? Have you got sunscreen?
No, well, that's
Come
a
in.
bit different.
That'd be handy.
Shark repellent.
You can see the shark.
Hang on a sec, one at a time. Thank you.
My mother had osteoporosis. Am I at a higher risk?
Good point.
We come from, rural backgrounds, of course,
Yeah,
dairy
sure.
and all the rest.
Okay, so let's just answer that as the last question for today. That's a really good question, because there's a couple of things involved with that. One is what we're just talking about, genetics. So as well as you can nowadays get your genes actually analysed, you can pay for that, but also you can find out your risks from your ancestors and your parents and your grandparents. So if everyone in your family has had osteoporosis, obviously there's a high risk for you. If it's only one person, like your mum, well then there is some risk, but not as high. But here's the thing, just to clarify, and this speaks to what Sue was talking about as well.
Later on,
Well,
last 10
women-
years of my life. So.
It's mostly affects women. So once a woman goes through menopause, what happens is that their estrogen levels change in their body. Now, estrogen is involved in helping, Sue was talking nicely about that balance of bone breaking down and bone being rebuilt. That is going on in everyone from the moment you are born. And there's this balance that strikes. As long as you get enough calcium and vitamin D, as long as you're walking around, everything is honky-dory. But unfortunately, for women, and this doesn't happen with men, once they hit menopause, their estrogen levels tend to plummet down. And that will push the direction into bone breakdown above bone reformation. That's why postmenopausal women.
Does HRT prevent that?
It
Sorry,
may,
last
yeah. Anyway, what is HRT?
Hormone replacement.
Yeah, that's right.
Therapy.
So there's a possibility that she may have had that, she may not have known about that. So because we know about hormone replacement therapy now,
Yeah, well, that would be giving you estrogen, though, some of your estrogen.
that's right,
Yeah.
that's right. There are risks, of course, associated with
Heart
all
attack
of those
and
things. So there is nothing, as soon as you put in something unusual, including a supplement into your body, you just need to know what you're doing. That's the point.
Thank you, Jess.
Does that answer your question?
Yes, I seem to remember there was a lot of discussion about 15 years ago about,
Hormones?
maybe not a real good thing to have HRT.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
And that's discussion still going on as well.
Yes,
Yeah.
well, I just don't have it.
Yeah.
And I break bones, apparently.
I might have one.
Just not yelling.
Well, as long as it's just my little pinky toe, I can deal with that. Anything greater, once I leaned into an auto bin, I won't say what for, and that was the last 8 years, and it was pretty painful.
The last thing
It's
that,
a big jump.
if you are, all these points Alex and Sue brought up, if you're a vegan, vegetarian, if you're if you're a postmenopausal woman, if you don't have dairy,
If you're lactose.
because you're lactose intolerant, you need to acquaint yourself with your calcium intake during the day. And you can either do that through food, which is my recommendation, and it's possible, or if for some reason you just can't do it through food, then work with someone like myself or a doctor to figure out. So you monitor and stick it on something. Last thing is, Jess, did you come up with
Sunscreen.
anything?
The only one I found was with zinc.
Okay, natural.
It just had zinc. Nothing. The other ingredients were all natural shit, except for something that was a long word. Didn't sound too natural.
Pronounce it, man.
Is that the one
It
you're
was like
translating?
polyglycerate 3 something else.
Okay.
There was a number in it though, you know. It's a bad sign.
Oh,
usually.
right. Yeah.
Isn't the reason zinc used as sunscreen is because it reflects the rays?
It can do, yeah. I'm not entirely sure if there's other reasons too, but that could be definitely one of them. Particularly the ultraviolet rays. What a fantastic class. Anyone got any final comments or questions?
Yeah, no, it's nice having more than 2 students.
We're getting a bit more feedback.